Good evening. These are the stories making the headlines in the Hot 7 Nightly News. CCC officials blast the CSA's General Secretary, calling him an attack dog over the issue of salaries. Are churches getting too theatrical? One reverend weighs in. The Bureau of Standards warns against subpar steel in St. Lucia. We have the details of these stories and more coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovely and Amy Joseph.
It is Tuesday, the 4th of December 2018. Welcome to the Hot 7 Nightly News. I am Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. The Castries Mayor and the CEO of the Castries Constituencies Council, CCC, have unleashed a scathing criticism of the General Secretary of the Civil Service Association, Claude Paul. Paul uttered statements last week over late payments of CCC workers, which are represented by the CSA. Rochelle Gonzalez reports.
Less than a week after the Civil Service Association's General Secretary, Claude Paul, called out the Castries Constituency Council for making late November salary payments to CCC workers, both the Castries Mayor and the CCC's Chief Executive Officer have fired back with a scathing response. Paul expressed frustration over the fact that whilst other CCC workers had received their payment on time, workers who fell under the CSA were left without their wages. He went on to accuse the CCC of being short on funds and also took aim at the CEO, Wilfred Pierre, who is a CSA member and trustee, expressing disappointment in Pierre for allowing such decisions to be made. Not having any of it, Pierre addressed the matter during a Tuesday morning press conference.
As a trade unionist, and you know that I have been in the trade union movement long time before Poppy, I am very, very surprised and taken aback of that attack dog approach. I'm not saying Poppy is a dog, you know. The attack dog approach that Mr. Claude Paul is actually using. I mean, when you're dealing with trade union and employees and employers, you have to assess the situation first. You have to ask yourself, well, is there a situation, especially as relating to lateness of pay, is that a common situation? Does the organization bend backwards to assist their members? Do they give, for example, loans or advances? You take all of that into consideration before you make a decision. You know, and that is what upsets me about this thing. Poppy has this attack dog approach that he uses every situation as the same.
Pierre said he explained the matter to Paul thoroughly, who he said also agreed with the advice given. However, by the following day, he had changed his tune. The CEO went on to accuse Paul of trying to cause a great divide.
Poppy is talking about another union, and he's trying to compare fortnightly with monthly. How can you do that? You cannot compare fortnightly, must get paid before. And you cannot, in the whole trade union movement, to be talking down about another trade union. Poppy keep doing that all the time. And I really want to advise Poppy that he has to look at situations first, look at the employers that you have, yeah, and then you decide what approach you're going to take. I mean, he has these situations with Lucilec, and I'm surprised the things that I heard Poppy saying in contravention with Section 392. Poppy needs to go and read 392 before he makes the statements that he's making when matters are before a tribunal. He has to do that, and Poppy's becoming very reckless. And as a trustee, I am going to take it up.
Sitting alongside Pierre was Mayor Peterson Francis, who called Paul's statement an attack on the office of the mayor. Francis said the General Secretary would have been better off discussing his concerns in person and behind closed doors.
The CSA General Secretary was actually gloating that we could not pay our staff on time. Now, I do not know what you mean by on time, because when the General Secretary of the CSA called, it was the 27th of November. There is no agreement in the collective agreement that we have made for any stipulated pay date. Instead of the General Secretary making sure if there's a problem that workers could be paid in a timely fashion, he is actually challenging us that we will not be able to pay for the month of November, and that will be a feature from now on, that CCC will not be able to pay on time. And these are the people we have representing workers in this country.
Mayor Francis said he will continue as he has been doing to look after the well-being of the workers of the CCC. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Rochelle Gonzalez.
A recent video of one pastor performing a heavenly descent and a photo of a church trying to implement an electronic collection plate have left one local reverend speaking out about theatrics and modernization in international churches. Solange Alfred tells us more.
Recent viral social media posts by two international churches have gathered mixed emotions from the general public. Men of the cloth have made many appeals to society to return to church and to give with a giving heart. But how far are these reverends willing to go to get their point across? Pastor Bartholomew Orr of Brown Baptist Church in South Haven, Mississippi, stunned his congregation when he came floating down from cables whilst performing his sermon. The sermon centered around the return of the Lord. The pastor believed that this entrance would have the necessary impact. Weighing in on the theatrics of it all is a local superintendent minister of the Methodist Church, Seth Ampadu, who states that as of late, many men of the cloth are now using the church to gain popularity and power, rather than allowing the gospel to speak and inspire the congregation.
Instead of looking at the faith in God, we are using all these outside things to attract people. But I think this is not an issue for Christianity at all. That is why today it seems and appears that a lot of people are losing faith in Christianity. Christianity is not about rituals. Christianity is not about those things. It is a way of life. Because Christ came to demonstrate life to us. Therefore, if you aspire to be a priest or a pastor or a prophet or whatever, those kind of theatrics and other things will not help. It's just a matter of making name for yourself, but not for Christ.
According to Ampadu, as far as the gospel is concerned, there should be little that a pastor, priest, or minister has to do to bring the word across. Ampadu also went on to address the introduction of a tap-and-go collection plate that was introduced in the St. Mary's Cathedral Church in Sydney, Australia. The Reverend stated that the gospel should not be for sale. The trial system set up by the church allowed for a flat donation of $10 to be made using a credit card. Although the idea received an overwhelming amount of negative feedback by parishioners, it did little in stopping the church from going through with its trial run.
I think those things are not necessary. Let the person be touched by God. Let God touch the heart of the person to give. Because if you set a standard of $10, some people can give even more than that. And some people will not be able to pay. So why should you set a price? I think it is wrong. I don't know the motive behind it, but whatever motive is, it is wrong. Let the people come out. I believe that when your spirituality grows, it will affect your pocket, so that nobody will come and tell you that pay this or that. If you look at yourself, what God has done for you, then you are giving to God. You know how much you are giving to God. So nobody should tell you to give this or that. I think that one is wrong. Because if you do that, then it means you are bringing classism in the church. So that if you don't have it, what should you do?
Both churches in question have received both negative and positive feedback for their recent actions. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
Thank you, Solange. Castries Mayor Peterson Francis is asking for his range of authority to be slightly expanded in order for him to better tackle social ills. Those ills include the rising issue of alcoholism. Rochelle Gonzalez reports.
As the Christmas season is in full swing, the merriment that comes with it, namely the consumption of alcohol, is becoming more apparent. While social alcohol consumption is considered to be an acceptable norm, especially during this time of year, for those who overly consume, the readily and easily available substance is quickly becoming a major issue in and around the city of Castries. In a one-on-one interview with Hot 7 News, Castries Mayor Peterson Francis said the matter has been a long-standing issue for his office and for him as a general observer.
If you realize, and what has happened also is that we have sidewalk vending of alcohol nowadays. We also have a situation where you find we have $1 now, which has really increased the problem in that area. I feel like, especially when these CDCs were built, there are more rum shops in the CDCs than there are ordinary shops.
Mayor Francis said whilst he has made efforts to tackle the growing issue, his hands have been bound by limitations.
When we started trying to tackle these things, for argument's sake, last year, around July, August, we cleaned up the sidewalks with these vendors of alcohol. And I could remember we had a very prominent individual in the name of Mr. Lord Help Me. I'll use his Calviso name because that's where he have all his lyrics. And came on the air and said, look, what do the mayor expect the people to do? They have school opening just now, they have uniform, books, school fees, and so on. It's difficult. Even when we have not only alcohol as a problem. And the other thing that I've always complained about is that the people who have the teeth to address these things, the agencies within government to address this thing, what is being done?
The mayor said St. Lucia is a copycat nation which implements international titles yet fails to allow them to function. Mayor, he said, is one such title. Mayor Francis said essentially entities including the licensing department, the police, the fire and emergency department and even NEMO should all fall under his jurisdiction.
The mayor and council is just to see about, picking up rubbish. That's basically what it is. But all these agencies, you find the other thing you find in the office of the mayor is you find an engineer. So all these problems these are things that we have to talk. But what can you do? We have to go for reform. We have to go, as far as local government is concerned, we have to practice local government. You see people drunk, you take them. The CCC does have 2 cells. Where you put them? Where do you put them? How do you wear them? The other issue we have, the vagrants. Look at the people who are sleeping in the city. What do I do? So I take it on my own. Where I put it in? Below my house? But we have agencies, people we have to work in sync. So I do not have the power.
Mayor Francis said there is a serious need for reform. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Rochelle Gonzalez.
Now, following a national survey, the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards has determined that none of the steel currently on the local market are up to national standards, and some do not even meet the standard that they were said to be manufactured to. The Bureau says there is need to monitor more closely the quality of steel coming into the country. The issue of climate change and building resilience has been a topical issue given the level of devastation that has been brought to bear on Caribbean islands due to storms, hurricanes and other natural disasters. Even as the issue of building to be more resilient to climate change is gaining greater prominence, concerns are being raised about the quality of steel available on the local market. Rebar steel is known as reinforcing steel. It is commonly used as a tension device for reinforced concrete structures. Reinforcing steel provides durability, resistance, and stiffness. Earlier this year, the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards performed a national survey on steel available on the local market. Head of Compliance at the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, Hubert Reynolds, says the results are worrisome.
None of the steel on market met the requirements of the national standard. There are 3 or 4 international standards out there. We have steel coming in with manufactured to ASTM 615, ASTM 706, and BS 4449. And some of those steel didn't even meet the requirements of the standard they were manufactured to.
Reynolds says it means that there is a need for the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards to monitor more closely the quality of steel coming into the island. However, there will be no ban on any imported steel because, according to Reynolds, some types of construction projects may not require certain grades of steel.
We have met with importers and we have shared the results of the survey. But our approach is not to limit the type of steel coming in, but to leave it to the engineers to recommend to people what type of steel they should use in construction. We are also working on developing a compulsory standard that we will enforce to ensure that the quality of steel that is coming in is right for our environment.
Reynolds notes that although steel reinforcement may not guarantee that a house will not collapse, it will hold up to allow for a window of time to make a possibly life-saving getaway. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force has issued an appeal to members of the public for help in locating a 15-year-old who has been reported missing. The teenager has been identified as Nikia St. Clair of Babonneau. Nikia was reported missing as of the 27th of November 2018. Anyone with information about her whereabouts has been asked to contact the Babonneau Police Station. The telephone number is 456-4120. Again, that number is 456-4120. This is the Hot 7 Nightly News. Still to come, the Bureau of Standards warns consumers to be aware of snow tires on the local market. A musician weighs in on the decision to add reggae music to a list of international cultural treasures. And solid waste raises a stink. Stay with us.